How we doing, everybody?
Hi, everybody.
We're trying here. Trying to go live here, so please bear with us with the technical aspect of things. First time doing this, maybe the last time doing this.
No harm, no foul.
We're coming on live here for you to talk about the thing we mentioned at the end of our last episode, that we are heading to the M3 Rock Festival in Columbia, Maryland, which unbelievably has been a month and a half ago already. Little under a month and a half ago, but a great experience. We wanted to start the episode and the broadcast off with a little Kicks, because we heard a lot. We heard a big announcement from Kicks during the M3 festival, which I'm going to turn this down. If you know Kicks, you know that tune.
Yep.
Which in fact, Kicks is pretty much responsible for the M3 Rock Festival. They're the ones that kind of put it together at the very beginning. We're at number 14 or something like that.
Yeah.
And so we want to go through our weekend. It was a great weekend. Saw a lot of great music.
Yep.
Met a lot of cool people. And
well, let's start off by saying, first of all, we were lucky this year because the temperature was in the 70s. Last year,
Right.
I went with some other friends. Dave wasn't with us last year, but it actually flurried on us and spitted rain. So we were miserable last year. The bands had to have been miserable because nobody could clap because the weather was so cold. So this year was a great experience for our whole group.
Yeah, I don't know if you said it, I totally missed it, but it was like 38 degrees and raining.
Right.
A lot of the time, and that would have sucked.
And with the crowd size, this year it was packed. You would look out behind you where we sat, and it was packed to capacity. Last year there was no one in the lawn, so it was just the people in the seats. So this had to have been great for the bands that performed because they were looking out at a packed house.
Right. And another news blurb that we'll mention as we go along through the course of the weekend, as we describe it, is even that last year Extreme had to cancel due to COVID. Gary and I think a few of the crew members of their crew got COVID, so Extreme had to drop out of M3 from 2022. And I guess we'll just jump to it right now and then come back to it. But it just so happened, and I think we jinxed it in episode 4. I really do.
I do too.
Extreme had to cancel again this year. And again, if you follow any of our music and follow Extreme, which if you love our music, you know that Extreme's exploding right now on YouTube, and their album 6 just came out last week, which we are excited about, and it crushes. But they had to cancel this year, second year in a row, because Extreme was on the Monsters of Rock cruise, which for the first time in history lined up with M3 by just a few days. It was the weekend before, and it ended on a Tuesday or a Wednesday, and M3 began on essentially the Friday. It didn't technically start till the Saturday, but there were activities on the Friday that we'll tell you about. But on that cruise, Nuno decided to play in a celebrity basketball game, and in that game blew out his knee horribly. He blew out all 3 ligaments.
Yep.
They ended up, they had already done one of their shows with no issues. They did their second show with him seated for most of it. And he actually sat in with somebody else, I forget, to do an acoustic tune on the cruise. And they're like, you might as well, because he wasn't going anywhere anyway. Right. But the moment he got off the ship, he flew back to LA, had his leg evaluated and all that stuff. So they canceled out. It was the biggest disappointment for us. We were looking forward to seeing them. Again, we loved pretty much all the bands that were there, but like Extreme and Winger were the highlights for us for that band. Winger happened to be on the cruise as well, and we'll tell you about it as well. But we want to kind of start from the beginning.
Yep.
Tell you about our whole weekend. So I'll just start one more little snippet, and then you can take over, right. Dink.
No.
But so it ended up being 7 of us.
Yep.
And it was our friends. We're going to give them all shout outs. It was John, Natalie, Keith, Leslie, me, my lovely wife, Katrina, and Dink.
And let me hop in. And I do owe tons of praise to Katrina, Dave's wife, because there were parts of the show where I had seats 25 rows back that were great seats. she was down in front with Dave with VIP passes, and the bands that she knew I liked more than her, she gave me her VIP pass, and we sat down in front, Dave and I was able to live out a dream by watching Lita Ford from front row. So that was awesome. I got to see my favorite band, Heaven's Edge, up close and personal with Dave up front. So that made my weekend. So shout out to Katrina.
Shout out. She's my girl.
Yep.
Yeah, she hooked this was actually my Christmas present.
Right.
And it was wonderful, and I thank her for that. I love you, dear. We're wearing our shirts. So
and our lanyards.
I forgot my lanyard.
I have my lanyard. That was the VIP package they gave you to get to meet and greets and the VIP special beverage and food venues where you could go. It was just a great weekend.
And I have to say that the folks at M3 hooked us up beyond even the ones the VIPs we purchased.
Yes.
To enable us all to experience everything together.
Yep.
But Dink's wearing this past year, 2023's M3 shirt. I figured I'd be different. I'm wearing the VIP shirt from 2016, which again, Katrina hooked me up with as a gift for that year. That year it was Vince Neil and Tesla on the 2 nights that were the headliners. This year, who was the Sunday night headliner? Kicks.
This year was Kicks, yeah.
So it was Styx on Saturday night.
Styx and Kicks.
Styx and Kicks.
Mm-hmm.
Wow, I didn't even put that together till right now.
Right.
So yeah, so it was the 7 of us that went. We all stayed pretty much the whole weekend. Dink got there a little bit late. And
no.
Yeah, you got there late.
I didn't get there late. I
got there the next day.
No. I got there and I saw I was there at the Count 77s. I was the first one at the venue. I left early.
Time out on the field.
Go ahead, tell me.
I'm talking about the Friday night.
Oh, Friday. Yes. I'm sorry. I totally forgot about that.
Which if you were a VIP,
I wasn't there, so I wasn't VIP that night.
So if you were a VIP, you got a little special treatment on the Friday night.
That's right. Yes.
So we went to when we first got there, we met up with Keith and Leslie and John and Natalie at the Lake House Hotel, where pretty much all the bands stay and there's parties and a little bit of performance stuff going on, etc. And if you had the VIP stuff, you were lucky enough to attend. Well, first of all, you go there. We went there and had some dinner, grabbed our VIP materials, which we'll show you we have here. But then that evening, we were lucky enough to see Mike Tramp do an acoustic show. Technically not an acoustic show. Again, we'll explain that. In basically the ballroom of the hotel, and pretty much everybody was there. It was pretty crowded, pretty packed night. A lot of the bands that are performing, they're just hanging out amongst everybody, chatting with everybody. Really, really, personable, really cool thing. Mike put on a great show. I ended up getting his Songs of White Lion CD and the matching T-shirt because I wanted to support Mike. He said it multiple times, and he ended up touring. Like, this was kind of the start of his tour to the U.S. that he did promoting this album, Songs of White Lion, which he totally remade and redid the songs to kind of fit his voice modern day. And it's definitely different. Some good, some I didn't like as much, but still pretty cool. But he'll tell you that he's coming back in the fall with full band. He really financially, it wasn't feasible to get everybody to come from Denmark and stuff with his band to perform, but he's planning on doing that in the fall, which should be pretty cool. What was I going to say? So had the chance to meet him on that Friday night after the fact, but we didn't because we wanted to hang out in the lobby and kind of experience everything that was going on. He actually ended up being in the lobby a little bit, but he was to perform on the Sunday, which is a story we'll get to as well.
Yep.
So that was pretty much, for the most part, our Friday night. Ted Poley, our boy Ted Poley, was in the lobby performing acoustically just on a whim. Like, I don't even think he was asked to do it, but he did it and attracted a lot of cool people for that.
Well, and I saw Ted has good motives in everything he does.
Yes,
but
he does.
Actually was raising money for animal shelters in his area. So he raised, I think he said $250, which was great.
Yep.
Just playing
Yeah,
acoustic guitar and singing Danger, Danger.
He sat
Ted
down,
Boy
pulled out
songs.
the acoustic, opened the case, and people tipped him and stuff,
Yep.
and he did requests and stuff. It was super cool.
That's right.
So that was our Friday night. So if you want to kick off the Saturday, go ahead.
Well, so my friends, the other 6 of them, I came down by myself because I had family obligations and stuff, so I didn't come down till Saturday. So these boneheads get to sleep in a nice hotel, have a good breakfast, be fresh-eyed. I drove the 4 hours from Pittsburgh to Columbia, Maryland, so I went right to the venue, started watching the first band, and then these guys ended up joining me all one by one within a short period of time. So the only band that they really missed was the band I saw, Count 77. I don't know anything about the band, but I can honestly say they reminded me a lot of 38 Special. Really had a good sound. They had their sound guy, or the guy that did the sound at that time, did a great job for them because they were more impressive than I expected them to be because they're the opening act. You don't expect a whole lot.
And attendance wasn't great at the moment.
Exactly.
Either.
Attendance doesn't pick up till mid-afternoon. Then after they got off, the band Child's Play came on. So I go back to the hair metal days. Child's Play's debut CD is one of my favorites. Love it. Unfortunately, the lead singer, who is also the lead guitarist, Brian Jack, passed away a couple years ago. So I knew going in it wasn't going to be the same Child's Play. But they did they get on. They play the songs that you know and you hear from the MTV days. They sounded good. Then the next band we got to see is one of our old school favorites, Brittany Fox. But once again, wasn't Dizzy Dean Davidson on vocals. So the guy, I don't know his name, who's the lead singer now, did a good job. They play all the songs, Girl School, all of the songs that you saw on MTV back in the days. They did that straight through. So that was good. Then Dave, you want to go into Quiet Riot was next. And I'm going to let Dave talk about them a little bit.
Yeah, that's cool. So we were back and forth in and out for certain things and maybe caught half an act at times to go try to meet some folks in VIP and that kind of stuff. But I got to say that, I knew that Jizzy Pearl, again, if you know our stuff, you know that Jizzy Pearl was in a band called Love Hate. And still kind of is. I think they still kind of do things here and there sparingly. And honestly, I don't know if it's the original guys or not. But so he's also the present singer of Quiet Riot.
Right.
And I've seen him perform with Quiet Riot in the past. And I think I've even seen him in M3 in the past. But I have to say that he crushed on that day. And, with it being him and help me out, bass player
Rudy Sarzo.
Rudy, Rudy being a founding member and stuff. I thought they sounded great. Rudy, I was in awe watching them from our seat because dude's 72 years old, looks incredible, moves incredible. He's still throwing the bass around and playing it like he always has, and just total. You could tell he enjoyed it.
Well, and the thing about Quiet Riot, their set list was perfect because they have so many songs that we've all heard throughout our years of loving this music.
Right.
It was nonstop, one after the other. They just kept playing hits and hits and hits and hits. And I've seen Quiet Riot live at M3 with 3 different vocalists now. And Jizzy does add a little bit of more relevancy to the sound of what Kevin DuBrow was.
Right.
So I think that made the crowd enjoy Quiet Riot because he does sound a bit familiar.
Yeah, he has that rasp and everything, and he still has a voice. He can hit everything, and I love it about him. A little side note is after M3, I want to say I started following him on YouTube, and he does all these little. He does kind of a, I don't know, it's not really a podcast. It's kind of a vlog and stuff of just his experiences in Hollywood and things, and he was just telling some great stories over the years about some certain things. So I highly recommend you check it out.
Yep.
Excuse me, because he has lived it for sure.
Oh yeah. Well, I'm going to take over the next
You have to take over.
I have to take over because this was a lifelong fantasy of mine. So when Dave and I met in college, above my desk where I was supposed to be studying was a Lita Ford poster. I've loved Lita Ford since I was a teenager. I had never seen her live. And that's what I said. Dave's wife, Katrina, came to me and she says, I know you love Lita Ford. How about you take my seat? And so I sat with Dave and watched Lita Ford from no more than 10 feet away. And I watched her physically perform at her age. She's still beautiful. I'm so happy that she's beautiful. But on top of that, she is a great guitar player and her band was totally kick ass. The the guitar player was I forget his first name. Kinnison is his. He sang "Close My Eyes Forever" with her. He
Right.
sounded great.
Right.
The drummer's Bobby Rock. The bass players, I don't know who the bass players, but as a band, they were tight. Sounded great. So I once again thank Katrina for that experience.
Bobby killed as he always does. Yeah, and I mean
Yep.
Lita still got it, man. She kept it together. She can I think I even leaned over to you during the show and said, you know, I don't think I've ever seen her live, to be
Yeah,
honest.
I never had.
And I leaned over to you and I'm like, she's actually a better player than I
Yeah.
thought she was.
Oh, for
Because
sure.
even on her records, I don't hear what we saw live.
Exactly. It was crunchy. Oh, so the next band we're going to talk about, I'm going to let Dave take over because this all ties into Extreme having to cancel and what M3 promoters ended up doing
Right.
as a replacement. And I think everybody in the audience will agree that what's a good word to use? The unsung heroes of the weekend were the next band that Dave's going to bring up to you.
Well, you're not talking about these guys though, right?
Well, oh, that's right. I totally forgot about the band. Okay, yeah. Go ahead. You can talk about both, but we'll interject.
One little note on Lita before we move on. Lita, I don't know why, for whatever reason, she seemed like she was like having a problem getting the crowd to engage. So near the end of her set, she kind of got pissed off, and I think she got the crowd to engage at that point because she was just looking for some more energy, and they totally reacted to her.
Right.
But relating to that, she played in Pittsburgh at Jurgles the next night, and obviously we couldn't be there because we were at M3.
Yep.
But a local reporter who kind of reviewed the show actually mentioned that she was having some technical issues, some sound issues on stage, some feedback.
Yep.
And she got pissed off to the point. And I mean, if you've seen her over the years, she just kind of tells it like it is. She stopped the show, made the sound guy come up on stage and demonstrated that the feedback she was having was basically like, did you hear this now? And got it corrected, and show went on, and end of story. But that was pretty cool.
Yep.
So next act on the bill is this is a tough one for me because I love Slaughter beyond love Slaughter.
Me too.
And in recent years, you know, they've kind of trademarked themselves, number one, as being loud.
Yes.
Like way loud everywhere they play. And that in combination with the fact that Mark has become more kind of a screamer.
Yeah.
You know, he can still hit notes, but it's like he's really turning them into a scream and stuff. And it kind of bums me out because I and I hate to say what I'm even saying, but I love them so much and love their tunes, and they rock out, they kill live all the time. In terms of just the energy they come on stage with, but just the volume and like trying to get his voice in with that volume and the screams just bums me out. I'm just being honest.
No, I agree with that. And Jeff Blando, he's not a new
the present
guitar player for Slaughter, is a phenomenal guitar player and a great vocalist. It just wasn't their night. You know what I mean?
Right.
And so, but with that being said, there's a positive to it because that's where we lead into the next band that Dave's going to talk about. The replacement for Extreme turned out to be a band, Voyage, that we loved. I mean, Dave will tell you a little bit more about what we saw.
Yeah. So leading up to it, you know, and this was days before the event that you know, literally, I want to say 2 days before the event where Nuno they announced that Extreme wouldn't be performing because of Nuno's injury. And they were like feverishly looking for a replacement, you know, a comparable replacement, which was going to be tough.
Right.
I mean, regardless. So we had no clue. They really didn't make any announcement until, you know, very close to the event, to the beginning of the event. And there was definitely some mixed reaction to it when it happened. And the after effect was a little different too, that we'll tell you about. But so they picked, and there's some tie-ins to this as well.
Yep.
So they picked a band called Voyage. Again, if you pay attention to things, particularly if you're a big Journey fan, Voyage is nationally touring and particularly based out of Vegas. I think a lot they play. It's a Journey tribute band, but you dig a little deeper, and if you know them at all, you know right off the bat that the lead singer is named. He has one name, Hugo. He actually does have a last name, but he goes by Hugo. Period. Right. And again, if you know our genre, you know Hugo was the lead singer of a band called Valentine, which Dink and I knew and loved.
We loved his stuff.
And I was hoping and praying for a Valentine tune during the Journey set, but it didn't happen.
No.
And they really didn't even refer to Valentine, which
No.
is weird to me because Valentine, I think at one point performed early on at M3.
Oh, wow.
And I think it was Hugo with different guys,
Yeah.
but it was still, they were calling themselves Valentine. So that's one of the tie-ins to the genre, number one. But they took the slot, they didn't take Extreme slot. They took the slot before Winger. Winger was going to be before Extreme. And then Styx was the headliner for the night. So the other tie-in, though, and the interesting part to me more so, is the fact that Extreme's manager happens to be the lead guitarist for Voyage. So I think it all kind of tied in where, Extreme was trying to solve the problem quickly.
Yeah.
And the manager was trying to help out. He's like, hey, we're available. We can play. And they did. And don't get me wrong, they killed. If you love Journey and you want to hear Journey tunes, again, there was a lot of mixed reaction leading up to it, going, how dare you put a cover band in front of all these other bands? I can't believe you got a cover band to fill Extreme for Extreme, blah, 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 blah. And, it's nothing on M3. I mean, 2 days, less than 48 hours to find a replacement was going to be near impossible. That wasn't something like Voyage, and comparable to Extreme, and even fitting within the genre. I mean, everybody's either already tied up with something else that's not music related, already booked in another city or in another venue, and it just didn't work out. So they did a good job. I think the crowd after the fact was totally into them.
Oh, for sure.
If you read some of the comments, on social media, a lot of people loved them and were really happy with it.
Yep.
Because they came out and cranked out the Journey hits. And that was their job.
And Hugo actually visually looks like Steve Perry.
Definitely.
So there were people there, like if you would look at him and maybe turn away, you could honestly think it was Steve Perry standing up there, and the guitar player had that same Neil Sean tone. So they did it. I loved it because it was just 45 minutes of great old Journey songs, and the hits that we all want to hear that they played back to back to back to back to back. So it was a great time for me.
Yeah, I mean, I think everything through Raised on Radio, because they did Be Good to Yourself.
Yep.
That might have been. Oh no, I think they did another one off of totally drawing a blank. Raised on Radio. And I mean, Hugo looks like Steve in Steve's prime. That's right. That's the part we didn't say yet.
That's correct.
And he's a great guy. I mean, he was super personable, really tied into the crowd really well. And they did a good job. I mean, to me, that's end of story. And again, in the end, I think the majority dug it and had a good time. And that's what they were there for.
For sure. So
you want to lead into the next one first?
So next up, Dave even mentioned this before. Winger came on next after Voyage, and Winger had even we all knew that they had been on the Monsters of Rock cruise, and Kip gets on stage, starts singing, and me and Dave look at each other and go, oh, his voice is a little raspy.
He's having an issue.
He's having a little raspy voice tonight. So to his credit, he came right out and said, yeah, everybody, I'm going to do my best tonight, but the other boys in the band are going to help me out as much as they can.
Right.
So I've not been to a Winger concert where I saw Reb sing as much, or Paul Taylor sing as much, or John Roth sing as much, but it actually made it a great experience because I didn't realize that Reb could sing the way he sings.
Right.
He's a great guitar player, but he laid down some great vocals when needed, and they helped each other out. So they, if you've seen Winger live at all in the past few years, they're going to put on a great show, and they once again did a great show, great set list. We loved hearing some of the new songs, and I thought it was a great experience. I don't know.
I mean, I'm close to you, but again, I think I jinxed something.
You might have.
Because, well, number one, if the guys wouldn't have helped him, I don't think it would have been as good as we thought, and he wouldn't have been happy with himself. He would have probably mentioned it multiple times.
Right.
But yeah, I think I had concerns, period, about anybody coming off that cruise.
That's right.
Directly to M3, because I'm like, they're going to be tired, they might be hungover, they might be this, they may be that. But he mentioned it early in the set. John and all the boys covered for him really well, did a really good job. But I jinxed it in the sense that, particularly, I'll give a shout out to Keith and Leslie again. I mean, I told them, and maybe even John and Natalie, that like we've never seen them bad, and even on their worst night, when Kip says my voice sucks,
Yeah.
it doesn't.
No, right.
So my only kind of letdown with this set was they stopped a little short, and I think because of his voice, which I get it.
Right.
They were supposed to do an hour set, and I want to say they did like 50 minutes or something. They came out and cranked out the songs everybody was going to know and love. What I really wanted to hear, because we're big fans of the new album, like they had just started doing Proud Desperado on their tour, not too long before that. And I hoped we were going to hear It All Comes Back Around as well.
Yeah.
So they didn't do
I
it.
know.
They didn't do anything new.
I know.
Which was the bummer for me. But you know, overall they pulled through, they kicked ass and did a great job.
So after
I gotta get a drink of water.
Yeah. So after Winger, I want to throw a little shout out to a Pittsburgh boy. A little tie in here is an old. I can't say a friend. I knew him from a band called Triple X that played here in Pittsburgh. He played drums for Triple X for a while. His name is Mark Petroselli. He's actually the drum tech for Styx. So to his credit, he's got a big set of balls on him. He wore a Pittsburgh shirt on stage as he's changing the drum sets and stuff like that in front of a audience that is, I wouldn't say primarily Baltimore Ravens fans, but he wore a Pittsburgh shirt proudly. So Mark, this is for you. Thanks for doing what you did.
Very kick-ass.
And I can say that Mark has probably one of the toughest jobs in rock and roll, because the drummer Todd Zuckerman for Styx has the most massive drum set you've ever seen. And I can honestly say he was the highlight of watching Styx play, because I've seen Styx a million times, but I kind of focused on him playing. Man, is he a good drummer.
He's a monster. He is a monster. Again, I mean, Styx is another band that never lets you down. We've never once seen them bad.
Right.
And he just, he's been in the band for quite a while now, but he's just monster drummer, raised them to another level. And that was another thing, like leading up to M3, there was a ton of commentary on social media about Styx doesn't belong here. They're not in the genre. You could have got somebody better, blah, 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 blah. And I was excited because
me too.
I knew they were going to come out and crush. And
for sure.
Like they treat every show like they're playing to a stadium. Yeah. They always have, they always will, no matter the size of the venue. And I mean, it's, they're super theatrical. They always have been. But with, I can't believe I'm forgetting his name. Who took Dennis DeYoung's place? Can you help me?
Lawrence Gowan.
Thank you. I love you for coming up with that.
Yes, right.
Lawrence Gowan. He is totally a theatrical dude. Yeah. Hell of a keyboard player. He's got the spinning keyboard on stage. He's standing on top of it half the time. They all interact so well together and off of each other. And I mean, it's just, again, total high energy show. Again, they have the balls to come out and do newer stuff off their latest releases. They just sprinkle it in here and there, and they get the crowd ramped up enough with leading into it from their other songs that people know. That, to me, that's totally pro. And I mean, obviously they've been around for 50 years almost, so they better be. But they remind me, Def Leppard's the same way. Saw them on the stadium tour last year, and they did not hesitate to come out and do, I want to say, 4 new tunes off of their latest CD, album release, whatever, along with all the hits. And it's because they're confident in what they do, and they still look at themselves as I don't know if they, I would hope, I guess they consider themselves still relevant
in the game,
but they make themselves look that way regardless if they are or not. That's what I loved about it. But
that's right.
Styx, I mean, totally, great ender to the night. They crushed again after the fact. I think a lot of people were happy with them because they forgot about like some of Styx's hits. Yes. Number one, and live, they just add another level to them. I don't know if were you surprised they did Mr. Roboto?
No, because I've seen him before, and you kind of have to do that song, even though it's one of the cheesier songs. I shouldn't even say cheesy. It's just one of the ones that's not a true rocking song, but the fans love it, so you got to do it.
I didn't expect them to do it though at this show.
I did.
Here's another thing we talked about. Yep. Excuse me, that I think they should have done. I drank too much water before this. So we obviously know Tommy Shaw to me is like the
Yes.
epitome of Styx.
Yep.
But he's also representative in Damn Yankees.
Yes.
If you know our beloved Night Ranger, you know that Jack Blades is the bassist and lead singer, blah, 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 that Night Ranger always does pretty much, they always do High Enough, and they always do
Come Again.
Yeah.
Come Again.
I'm thinking Coming of Age. Come Again.
Right.
So my hope was going to be
I
that
know.
they did at least one Damn Yankee song. Why not, right?
I know.
We were also hoping that Night Ranger was going to be the fill-in band for Extreme, and then it would have been almost a Damn Yankees reunion.
That would have been sweet.
That didn't happen this year.
Nope.
Night Ranger was there last year.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was another thing. I'm like, come on, do a Damn Yankees tune, but they didn't do it. But that's okay.
Yep.
They crushed. So that was the performance for Saturday night. We did go back to the lake house. Some of us did. Were you already dealing with an issue at that point?
Yeah. Long story short, I had cracked one of my wisdom teeth, and I was in the most severe pain I've ever felt. So I was supposed to go back to the lake house and hang out with the guys from Heaven's Edge who were playing at the lake house.
Poor fella.
Believe it or not, I blew it off, and I had to get some pain medication and go back to the hotel and try to get a good night's sleep
to recover, to hopefully make it through the next day, because we still had Sunday to do.
Exactly, and that's where we're at now. Is we're up at the Sunday. So do you want to talk about the Mike Tramp cancellation first of all?
Well, let me back up a little bit to the Saturday night.
Go ahead.
So we found out, and this is us being old, we'll admit it.
We are.
We found out, like, Heaven's Edge, this was their CD release party. They actually released a new album, which another episode we'll talk about, but it's phenomenal. They ended up performing on the Sunday, but they performed. We knew we were going to see them on the Sunday, but they performed, I want to say, at 12:30 or 1 a.m. Saturday night in the ballroom at the Lake House, and it was their CD release party. And we backed out of it. We're like, you know what? We'd rather be ready to go on Sunday. We're going to see them on Sunday, blah, blah, blah. So we skipped out. We hung out in the lobby for a little bit, saw some folks, said hi to, like, there were some, Ted was there again, hanging out, making his rounds. I think who else we saw? I saw Rod Morgenstein from Winger. I think Mike was hanging out that night too. No, he wasn't. And some other folks. I think I saw Robert from Warrant. Everybody was hanging out that night. And again, there was going to be another kind of party / concert in the ballroom of the Lake House. So that ended Saturday night. Mike Tramp, again, he did the VIP only performance on the Friday night that we got to see him on. He was supposed to be first on Sunday, right?
Yeah.
So he was supposed to be first on Sunday, and made an announcement not too long before in the morning that I'm going to get a little more detail, but that he developed COVID. He had COVID. He tested. He didn't know he had COVID at the time, but he was really sick leading into Saturday evening and had to cancel his performance on Sunday. He later found out that he tested positive for COVID, as did his guitar player who was with him. And we found out well after the fact that there were a ton of people that came off the boat that either had COVID, had the flu. My neighbor was on the cruise, did not come to M3, never had plans to come to M3. He was on the cruise and got sick as a dog days later after the cruise, and was laid up for like a week with a flu. And I mean, he said it's the worst he's felt in years.
Not good.
So there were a ton of sick people coming off that cruise, and we're like, hey, we got to see Mike in that small ballroom on the Friday night. And he was probably already starting to get sick. I wonder how many people got sick from that.
Yeah, right. You makes you wonder.
And we did find out that some people did, but not too many. So yeah, he ended up having to cancel, which was kind of a bummer. What minded for him to be on the big stage and see him in front of all the people that didn't get to see him at the VIP show.
So what turned out to be a bummer for Dave turned out to be one of the highlights of the weekend for me. So I'll tell you a little backstory. So the band Heaven's Edge was a last-minute replacement also on the bill.
Right.
And the fact that they played this gig on Saturday night at the hotel, that gig was the original members, Reggie Wu on guitar.
Oh, that's right.
But because they were a last-minute replacement, Reggie had already made plans to be at an event he couldn't get out of on Sunday. So he couldn't perform with the band on Sunday. I'm like, oh crap, are they going to perform with one guitarist? It's not going to sound the same. He's a phenomenal guitarist.
Right.
So it turns out that they had one of his, I don't know if he's a music student or how Reggie knows this kid, Matt Stanley, probably in his early to mid 20s, gets up on stage. And I'm like, oh boy, they're putting in this young dude. How's he going to know these Heaven's Edge songs that are complex to start with? He gets on there, he shredded, he ripped, he made them sound as good as. I'm not taking anything away from Reggie, but he didn't miss a beat. He knew note for note. He learned every Heaven's Edge song in 2 weeks.
And what relationship was he?
I think he was one of Reggie's music students.
I was going to say, we knew he was super young.
Yeah, he's really young, and I think Reggie knew that he was capable of stepping in for him. So I guess Reggie said for 2 weeks we just practiced all the songs that we were going to do live.
Yeah,
and he did them flawlessly.
He did. He was excellent. And I mean, they made a point of highlighting him repeatedly. But I mean, if you didn't know the band, you wouldn't have known that Reggie wasn't there.
Right.
So he did a great job, and they did a great job. They were technically the first act of the day.
Yeah.
And I got to say, the crowd, there was actually a pretty sizable crowd to come to watch them and be in their seat. And I think it's because they've been there so many times that they've built a reputation, a positive one.
Yep.
And they did a couple new tunes off the disc that I hadn't heard yet. Well, it wasn't out yet, was it?
It wasn't out at the time, but they had released a couple videos on YouTube.
Right.
So,
right.
Yep.
I had heard a few in advance, and then they did them live as well as the songs we were expecting to hear, and they killed. They did a great job.
Yep.
There was a point in time where I saw them years ago. I think this M3 2016. Again, Katrina hooked me up with some VIP, and got to go backstage, and I met him. And at the time, the lead singer was Mark, is his name, right?
Mark Evans.
At that point, he hadn't aged a second, and I commented that to him. I'm like, dude, do you age at all? And he still looks great. I mean,
right.
That was 20, or that was 7 years ago.
Yeah.
So we've all aged a bit in 7 years. But sounded great, performed great, and the extra kudos I give to them is, again, they performed at 1 a.m.
Yes.
Hours before this for their CD release party at the Lake House. They were probably up. I think he did comment that they were running on like no sleep, but you would have never known. They did a great job.
That was a phenomenal band. I love them.
So I want you to start this one.
Well, so the next one, how Dave earlier said he leans in with a little bit of hesitation discussing Slaughter. So the next band up was LA Guns. And keep in mind, there's two factions of the LA Guns camp.
There's a caveat to this.
There is a caveat. This is Stephen Riley, the drummer's LA Guns. So he's the only. No, I take it back. His bass player was an original member of LA Guns.
I didn't know that.
I didn't know until after the show. So anyway, Mick Cripps was on bass. But to me, it's not the same LA Guns if you don't have the same guitar player, the same lead vocalist, Phil Lewis and Tracy Guns. So I went in with hesitation. The song sounded great, just was not my favorite act because I want to hear the real thing. And they're one of those bands that the original guys bring the original sound.
Right. These and the energy.
That's what I was going to say. So that was next. The next band, do you want me or you to talk about them? The band Vixen, that was a pleasure.
Oh, you can start. I don't care.
Well, so we had kind of.
But I am going to say some things.
Well, I'm going to say some things too because we had a Janet Jackson moment at the show because the lead singer Lorraine Lewis, who used to be in the band Femme Fatale, that me and Dave used to drool over her back in the '80s. She's now the lead singer for Vixen, and she did have a wardrobe malfunction where something popped out, and the whole audience got a chance, but she recovered calmly, and she says, "I'm wearing pasties.
It's okay. I'm wearing pasties.
It's okay. I'm wearing pasties. Don't be afraid of the nipples." So we got over that, and they actually, for people that used to criticize them for being wimpy and an all chick band, they rock. They were great. They just put on a great show.
Yeah, and it's not the original lineup.
Yeah, right.
Roxy's the only original founding member.
Yep. And
the people even argue that she wasn't the true original drummer, but there was somebody else for like a second, I think, before her.
Yep.
But Lorraine, on the Femme Fatale note, she still kind of promotes that and does stuff with it. I just don't know that she has a true band. But the cool thing is that Vixen did a Femme Fatale tune. I was hoping they would do another one as well. But and she's not the same as original singer's name. I'm putting each other on the
Yeah,
spot
me
here.
too. Jan Kuderman was the guitar player,
Right.
and
Such an idiot. I shouldn't even brought it up.
I can't believe I'm drawing. It's going to hit me in a minute.
If
Keep talking.
if anybody knows it, but anyway, the original lead singer and her voice are night and day. They're totally different. But Lorraine, she has a rasp to her voice, but she still has the range of the songs. So I mean, to me, she brought a different vibe to it. But to me, again, if you knew nothing about Vixen, you would think she was a founding member of the band.
Correct.
And the bassist and lead guitarist are both younger now, and they're just it's obvious that they love what they do. They were just all totally into it, having a great time. Lorraine was just she got the crowd into it repeatedly. The nipple thing definitely helped. But I think they've frequented M3 many times.
Yeah.
With original lineup and the different formations over the years, so the crowd definitely knows them and definitely welcomed them.
Yep. The next band, Dave and I could both talk at length all night,
ad nauseum.
We could have a show just about this band,
and we will,
because I can honestly say, going to M3 when I saw the lineup this year, this was one of the bands on the bill. I'm like, no big deal. I've seen them 10 times. I've seen this band so many times over the years. But the band Firehouse, I didn't expect much, but man, this was
You didn't expect much?
I didn't expect to be excited and blown away the way I was when I got home. I'm like, that was the best performance of the whole weekend.
They were.
I think their set list, the way their sound was, the way they sang, everything was my favorite. I've seen them, like I said, so many times that I wouldn't say bored with them, but this reinvigorated me. I've been listening to Firehouse since M3 because I go, wow, they sounded so great.
Yep.
I have a burning fire to see them again live now again.
Yeah, but it's just like, we had multiple discussions about them over the weekend and even afterwards. It's like, number one, they have like the question I asked was like, do they have a bad song? Period.
I know.
And they have so few bad songs,
Right.
if any. It's ridiculous on all of their albums. I even went back to Primetime. It was their last album they released of all new original material, because I have it, but I, whatever reason, never listened to it a ton. And it's much better than I remembered it listening to it. They don't do any songs off of it when they perform live, but it's just like they come out and punch you right in the face, and they don't stop until the end. And they definitely pull out all the hits. But what was the tune you were happy to hear?
Home Is Where the Heart Is.
Home Is Where the Heart Is.
One of my favorite all-time Firehouse songs, and I don't remember hearing it live for many, many years. And
it was never a single, but
no.
Again, first, second album, back to start to finish, incredible.
Yeah.
They could do any song off of either. I mean, honestly, let's see. First 2, 3 was the name of the third album. Was Good Acoustics next, I believe it was. And then Category 5.
Yeah, right.
Again, just they could just kill. They could do any of those songs, and I'd be totally happy with any of them. Fortunately for me, I've been in 2 different bands over a span of time that got to open for them and play for them. My last time was with my band Nomad, north of Mason-Dixon. We played at this big motorcycle event in Johnstown and opened for them, and got to hang out with them. Got like VIP, blah, blah, blah. But, hung out, talked for a little bit, took a picture with them and stuff. And again, they blew the doors off the place.
Oh, yeah.
They're one that I can still say I've never seen them do a bad show.
Me either.
Ever.
Me either.
And I was just, I was happy that they kind of, for all the stuff that happened, Mike Tramp canceling, you not getting to see Loudness, Extreme, not being able to do it, Winger having a little bit of trouble, they made up for everything by coming out and killing.
Well, and the other thing that was nice about Firehouse playing so well is our friends Keith and Leslie and John and Natalie, not necessarily Firehouse fans to start with,
right?
But by the end of the night, man, they were like, "That was a great set. We loved it. They are so good." You
right.
know what I mean? So
John asking us if that's the original singer. Yeah, I'm like, he looks so young. I'm like, yep,
they were great.
They were.
Yeah, the next band, I'm not laughing at all, but I've seen this band before. The first time I saw them, it was Steven Adler, Adler's Appetite, and basically they just do the Guns N' Roses stuff to a T. The lead singer is a guy from Colombia or something. They were great the first time I saw them because it was totally a shock to me to hear how a cover band could sound that great with just Steven Adler on drums.
Right.
This year they were good. They sounded great, but when you've seen them once, the second time there's not the excitement. So people that saw them at this show this year probably thought they were phenomenal. I just was a little bored by it because I'd seen it before.
Yeah, if you're seeing them for the first time, I mean, the lead singer, if you don't hear him speak, that's important because he has a pretty strong accent.
Right.
But if you don't hear him speak, I mean, he intentionally emulates Axl in every way. I mean, he looks like him, he dresses like him, I mean, he's a great singer and he can emulate Axl to the T. And the guitarist is kind of a Slash look, wannabe, looks like him a little bit, blah blah blah. But yeah, like I had already seen him once before as well, and it was cool to see him. I mean, they didn't. I don't think the words aren't blew me away, but didn't blow me away like they did you.
Yeah.
But a second time, it's like okay.
Yeah, that's right. That's exactly my feelings.
They're a Guns N' Roses tribute band at this point.
Exactly. Yep.
And everybody loves Steven Adler. He has this like lovable kind of thing where he stops in the middle of the set, stands up, everybody cheers for him. He gives them the little smile, blah, blah, blah. So it was cool, but
it was cool.
Do I need to see him again? No, I don't.
I agree.
Am I right in saying though, they actually did an original song, like a new song? I'm pretty sure they did. And I'm pretty sure he mentioned that they might be releasing something.
I think you're right. Oh, the other thing about why they were more excited or more interesting the first time I saw them, I don't know if you know the bass player, Tanya O'Callahan.
Oh.
She's a female, beautiful female playing for Whitesnake now, but she was in the band when I saw them the first time. So that was a little bit more appealing at that show than it was this year. So, but not taken away from them.
She is definitely lovely and a badass bassist on top of that.
Exactly. All right, the next band, I don't know if Dave agrees. I love this band all my life, but over the years, I've kind of...
A lot has changed.
Yeah, a lot has changed over the years. So I can honestly admit that Great White came on stage and me and my buddies, and I think Dave and Katrina were already at the VIP booth eating pizza and having beverages.
That is true.
So I can't really give an honest evaluation of Great White, even though...
I can give one of how they sounded. But
yeah, they did sound good, but it's a vocalist. It's a young 26-year-old dude singing the songs of Jack Russell, who has a distinctive Robert Plant type of voice, and everybody knows the Great White hits. You can't find a replacement for a voice like that. So the young guy does his best and did a great job. But from what we heard, we were only watching from the sidelines, not dead on.
Yeah, and I mean they were killing the Great White songs, but it's as we mentioned a couple of these bands, it's like the formations aren't what you hope.
Right.
Number one, and I mean it's the original lineup of Great White minus Jack Russell.
Right.
And that's actually noble because we happen to love Queensryche, present day Queensryche.
Yeah.
And it's a big, it's a big mix of original, non-original folks, and we love Todd LaTorre as the lead singer too. So it's really, I guess it's all in the ear of the beholder, let's say.
That's right.
Mitch Malloy was the lead singer for Great White for maybe a 2-year period.
And we love Mitch.
Yeah, love Mitch, but he wasn't a good fit for Great White, and I think he might tell you that.
Yeah.
And then Terry Illouz, however we say his last name. I'm gonna contact him and ask him.
I think we need to.
Terry Illouz, I think, because he's French.
Yes.
Was a longer time singer of Great White as well, and he put his own spin on things. So he kind of tried to get away from the Jack Russell sound to some degree, and they did a good job of it for a long time. But then, for whatever reason, that ended as well. So yeah, Great White, if you love the Great White songs and that's all you care about, then I would say I would say go see them.
Yep.
I'll start the next one. We're getting to the end here.
Yep.
And this is the longest podcast episode we've ever done so far, and it happens to be live, which is interesting. I told him at the beginning, I'm like, we could probably talk for a long time about M3, a lot longer than we're even talking now.
Well, keep in mind, Dave and I met earlier. We talked for probably a couple hours before this, so that's what we do, and that's what our friends and ours do.
Yeah, so, kind of prepping things.
Yes, we're music geeks.
Yeah, especially for this genre, as you know. Yeah. So the next act was a band we've both seen many times back in the day and present day live, and it's Warrant. And again, Warrant is an all original lineup, except for obviously Janie Lane, who passed back in 2011,
Right.
who we dearly, dearly miss.
Yep.
But I've been a defender of present day Warrant since pretty much since they started, because their goal really never was to be, after Janie passed, exactly the Warrant that they were with Janie. And they hired a guy named Robert Mason, who is known in LA and through the band scene for a lot of things that he did over the years. And he was he the singer on the second or third
Lynch Mob. Yep.
album?
Yep.
But I mean, he's known in LA for doing all kind of stuff. One of his trademark stories that I don't think he was the first to tell, but Robert used to be not a fill-in.
Oh yeah.
When Ozzy would lose his voice during shows, they would fly him in.
Yep.
And he would be backstage. The description was in a tank top, in flip-flops and shorts, and a beer on a stool, singing backup, replacing Ozzy's voice live. So I mean, that has to be one of the best stories ever.
I love it.
So, but getting back to Warren, they do. I mean, they come out and do essentially what the crowd wants to hear. But Dink noted that he was hoping that we had looked at set lists previous, and we had seen him just recently in Pittsburgh and elsewhere. But they do mix things up a little bit here and there, and they've honored they kind of did a ton of the album Cherry Pie when it was at the 30th anniversary. And my guess is at some point they're going to do Dog Eat Dog, more so than they do now, because they do Machine Gun off of Dog Eat Dog, but they threw in something that Dink wasn't expecting. We had seen them do it live in Pittsburgh weeks before. But they did Thin Disguise. Right. It was on a movie soundtrack, and it's a great song, and it was a B-side to, I forget which single.
I don't remember.
But Dink even questions, why would they even do that?
Out of all those selections that they could choose from.
And I'm like, well, I mean, I think they dig just doing that tune live. Yeah. It is a great song, and it's kind of for the hardcores, which is why I loved it. So they did that. They did Machine Gun, and then pretty much all the ones you expect them to hear off of Dirty, Rotten, Filthy, Stinking Rich and Cherry Pie. And, again, if you don't know Robert Mason, they never intended him to imitate Janie or be Janie's voice.
I was just going to bring that up.
Because he's not. He has a raspiness to his voice, but he's a hell of a singer. His range is still, he can hit all the notes,
and he's a good showman.
He's a great showman, and they all work so well together. It's ridiculous.
Yeah,
I mean, they just work off of each other and they just have fun.
They're one of those bands that seems like they enjoy playing the music. So who cares what the singer sounds like? They're just going to go out and rock every night. And if you're a diehard Warren fan, Janie's not coming back except Robert Mason, because he does a great job.
Right. And I mean, that's all I'd have to say about them. They're one of the ones we will defend. That has a different lead singer or a different lineup.
Yeah, right.
And they come back time after time and kill. And they always do.
So going into the last band of the evening, the headliners Kicks, I hate to admit this, my pain in my wisdom teeth was so bad.
At that point.
I hugged all my friends goodbye, drove back home to Pittsburgh, let them text me the next day with some videos and clips of, and that's when I learned that they had announced that they were retiring. So I'll let you, Dave, give a summary of Kicks.
Yeah. So, I mean, I saw Kicks for the first time, at M3, I want to say at this one, 2016. And yes, I was a fan of a couple of their tunes, but to me, even at that time, they always headlined either the Friday or Saturday or Sunday night, or however the weekend was at that time. And I really didn't plan on sticking around for them back then. And I'm so glad that I did, because people, including you, said, you got to see him. You got to see him live.
That's right.
And I said, we'll see. We'll see what the time comes and stuff. saw them live back then, crushed them, and I became a bigger fan ever since. And we were even talking about this just generally about other bands before we did this, that there are bands that win you over live. You may not be big fans of the tunes, or you think, they'll never match the recording, blah blah blah. They crush, and I mean, they're fun. Steve Whiteman is just the man live. He's entertaining, he's funny, etc. But yeah, so they came out, guns blazing as usual, and somewhere in the middle of the show, excuse me, I'm having vocal problems now too. Somewhere in the middle of the show, essentially announced that this wasn't their last show, but they were retiring this year. They were going to honor a ton of their shows. Ironically, they typically come back to Pittsburgh at the end of the year, and they had a scheduled Juggles date that they won't be doing.
That's right.
So they announced they're retiring. They fully explained why. I mean, and I totally get it. I'm a singer. I've been doing it a long time. They've been doing it a lot longer. They've been doing it for 40 years, and there were some health issues in the band that they've dealt with more recently, but they're starting to catch up with them, and that was one of the big things. And I read a long interview with Steve, I think right after the fact, and his wife is actually retiring. She's a teacher, I think, full-time retiring, and they want to do other stuff, and I totally get it. Steve was dealing with neuropathy in his feet.
Yeah.
And I mean, if you think about that from a live performance aspect, man, you're always on your feet. I mean, even before shows, after shows, that kind of stuff.
And the original drummer who did perform at M3 this year had a cardiac arrest or some cardiac episode on stage last year, which we probably all read about. He played this year because they're brothers. You know what I mean? Yep. They wanted to go out on top. And that's what I give them credit about is Kix could have continued to plug in fill-in guitar players, fill-in drummers. They're brothers. They've been around since the mid-'70s, and I give them credit for knowing when it was time to bow out, and they did it at the right time and on top of their game.
Yep. And I mean, their drummer literally almost died during that show.
Yeah, right.
And recovered, came back, and he's going to be able to finish out.
Yep.
Is it Steve Forsythe?
Brian Forsythe.
Brian, I'm sorry.
Yep.
He was having issues as well.
Yeah.
Was it for the M3? I'm thinking
he's had some on and off dealings with illegal substances and stuff like that. He's admitted it though, but I think he's overcome that. But he said, it's taken a toll on me over the years. I can't continue. Right.
But a show or two after M3, he wasn't able to make the show. He was rushed to the ER for something. I forget what it was.
I didn't see that.
And they found they actually did it as a 4-piece, I believe.
Oh wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah. But I mean, I give them credit too for they didn't have to explain anything.
Right.
They could have said, "We're done."
Yeah.
We've been in it for 40 years. But I mean, they explained it, and I mean, they have devout fans, particularly at M3 and in that area because they're from Hagerstown.
Yep. So
I give him credit for totally giving some detail on that and everything. But finished out the night, they crushed, and that ended M3 as we knew it. And we all went home pretty happy with things. A lot of us stayed that Sunday night and came home the next day. Katrina and I were one of them. Keith and Leslie were one of them. I think, John and Leslie did as well.
They did. I drove home.
I'm sorry, John and Natalie. But you went home that night because your issue, or you would have been probably staying too, or no?
No, I was planning on going home anyway, just for work and kids and stuff like that. But next year, M3 is such a part of our culture right now and our friendships.
Right.
With our group has grown over the years too. We're gonna hopefully add a couple more. We actually are. My sister's gonna go next year, so we're gonna add my sister Sue to the bill. I'm gonna try to convince my brother Dave to go, and we have other friends that were on the fence. But if they announce a lineup this upcoming year, there's going to be more of us. And we also have had friends like our friend and roommate from college as well, Kirk, who went in a previous year. Yeah. So who knows? We might have a bigger group next time. But what I'm assuming, hoping, and praying on, if that's the case, is Extreme better friggin' be there next year. I really think they have to be, and they have to headline the night after everything that's happened. They have to.
Their album exploding, everything going so well for them now. So I think they'll make it up. That, M3 was the only show that they missed which was the bummer. But it was so close in
Yep.
proximity to
I know.
to each other that
We'll let Nuno slide this time.
right. And just if it so happens, the Monsters of Rock cruise, as we know, next year is at the beginning of March, so there won't be any crossover, which
No.
there hadn't been previously ever. So that it's crazy that happened, but it did the way it did. So.
Yep.
So that we wanted to try this out live because we were talking about a live event and blah blah blah, and I can't believe we've been at it for an hour here.
Well, before we go, we do want to say a special shout out to the M3 promoters because they really make this situation work.
Yeah,
they are faced with some challenges that you wouldn't believe with bands canceling. Having to find a fill-in band, making sure that it's amazing when you're there too to see the bands when they tell you what time the set list starts. They are on at that moment. They have this system down so good that the band that's waiting in line, their drum sets, their everything equipment is on, and they step on stage when they are told they're stepping on stage, and they finish when they're told they're finishing. It's just great. So we just love the whole environment because we go down there, we talk to the people sitting near us. You feel like you're with safe people. I left my cell phone at my seat a few times, and the guy behind me watched it for, you know what I mean?
Yep.
The people look out for each other, and you're a community.
Yeah, we met two folks were sitting beside us from the UK, two really nice dudes, and we had so many good conversations about things. We filled in each other on information we didn't know about bands, all kind of stuff. So it was a great time.
Yep.
So on that note, we're going to say goodbye for now. We thank you for joining us. If you happen to not see this live, it'll definitely be posted on all of our sites, including YouTube, that's where we're live from now, and all the other podcasting platforms in audio form as well as video form on Spotify.
And we have a lot of great topics coming up in the future episodes. So tune in for one of the bands that you've probably wondering if we're going to talk about. We'll talk about it. We have a lot upcoming.
Yeah, I mean, we can tell them too. We're just threw out some topics here this afternoon, discuss some stuff like favorite vocalists, favorite lead guitarists, favorite ballads, all kind of stuff. And if there's any topics you want to hear, definitely let us know either through our socials or on YouTube here live, or from the podcast pages as well.
Yep.
So we are going to say goodbye for now. I'm going to lead us out with a little more kicks just because they deserve it.
That's right.
A little blow my fuse.
Oh yeah, it's a good one.
Take care, everybody. Be well.
Some good crunchy guitar on here. I love it.
And we will see you soon. This will be posted as one of our episodes, episode 5, called Live, Live, Live. And we'll be coming out with you soon. Take care, everybody.
See you next time.
Peace out.
Rock on.